This is Zafar Abundance Wala, and you are watching Abundance Show on Global Abundance Television, GOW TV. And today, none other than Jim Gale is with us. I'll be going directly to Jim Gale and asking his life story. Jim Gale, how are you?
I'm doing fantastic, Zafar. It's really good to see you and chat with you today.
Thank you so much honoring my show and this gracing my show is amazing having you always on my show. First of all, please give us a brief story that took you to here.
Okay, sounds good. So, I've always been a nature lover, and about 18, 19 years ago, I learned what was going on in the world. I learned that the governments around the world and many of the corporations around the world are destroying our planet with our help. And when I learned that, I learned how bad the destruction was and is. And I went into a place of scarcity, of worry, of concern, because I have kids, especially because I have kids and because I love this earth. And when I went into this concern, I started searching for, first of all, what was the real problem? And then more importantly, what is the solution to the problem? And that has led me to here where I am now surrounded by the solution. It is a food forest. I'm in a Garden of Eden type of food forest. And 4 years ago, there was nothing here but sand. And we have helped to transform with nature doing all the work, right? God's design doing all the hard work. We have put the right food in the ground and the right ground cover in. And now we have an abundant ecosystem that provides all of the food we need. And it provides plant starts, and it's like a nursery, it's like a free energy system. And we're using this free energy system to share our surplus with our community. And we've actually even created a school here where the students, this is literally their playground and this is their schoolyard.
Wow. What made you come to this point and what's the real inspiration getting very connected to the nature that you have tuned yourself into abundance of nature? You are working for abundance in literal
Yes.
terms. I mean, what's the motive?
Yes. Well, the motive is to change the world. The motive is to inspire and empower people to take the poisons out and become the stewards of their land again. When we achieve mass adoption, which might only be 10 or 15% of people that are caring for and protecting the earth again, then what will result from that is the end of cancer and diabetes and heart disease trends, the end of war, the end of hunger, the end of scarcity, and the end of the majority of suffering, right? We're in this earth, so there'll probably still be some of that stuff, but the majority of the suffering will be gone when we care for ourselves, our friends, our family, and our world.
Thank you so much. Okay, Jim, tell us about your school. What do you teach in school? What training is exact that you are extending to your students?
I sure will. And by the way, for everybody listening, the school model that I'm sharing with y'all today can be replicated wherever you are in the world. It's so simple. What do children need to learn more than anything? They need to learn how to think for themselves and how to care for themselves and how to be self-reliant. Right? That's the number one thing that should be taught in every school in the world. It's not. And so our school, that's what we focus on. And the model that I'm going to share is so easy to duplicate. And here it is. So in our school, we're going to have an elementary group of 12 to 15 kids, and we are going to have a senior high group of 12 to 15 kids. And I'm going to be teaching the senior high, and we have another teacher that's already teaching the elementary. And the kids in the elementary, they spend less than an hour a day on screens. The rest of the time, they're using their hands. Like yesterday, my daughter, who's 6 years old, she built a raised garden bed with her other classmates, right? In the senior high, we are going to create the social media platforms, and we are going to create the local food supply chain. And every day, the students of the school are planting seeds, and they're propagating plants, and they're harvesting, and they're learning how to turn the land into a food production system. Now, as a result of this activity, every day, little by little, as a result of this, they have all the food that they need. Within a year, their families will be completely fed by the school, right? So it's a school that combines stewardship and entrepreneurship in such a way where over the next 4 years, we will have a completely poison-free local food supply chain. And people might say, how is that possible? Well, it's actually so easy, it's ridiculous. Year one, they'll be focused on building the land, building the soil, and creating the base. And by year two, there will be such an abundance of plants and energy that they'll be able to share it with their families and their friends. And then by year 3 and 4, we are creating the supply chain where we are creating plant starts, right? Like sweet potatoes, for instance, is such a great plant start. In fact, I wonder, they're growing all over the place here. Sweet potatoes are so easy to propagate that you can take a cutting that's like 6 inches, 8 inches long, and you can then put that in the ground at the school or at the prison or at the city park. And now you've got a ground cover of food, which of course ends hunger, right? So that's what we're doing. We're working with local retailers on a mission to create complete food security here in our area. And then we're putting it on film so people can do this all over the world.
This is literally amazing. Thank you so much.
Really,
Like,
yeah.
how's it financially viable and commercially sustainable?
Oh, that's such a great question, Zafar. So, right now in the United States, and I'm going to ask you here in a second what's happening where you are, but in the United States, the fiat dollar is collapsing and the cost of food is going up like this, right? So, I was just at the store the other day and a steak was $41 per pound, right? 10 years ago, it was $10 per pound. So it's went up like 400% in 10 years, right? That's the collapse of the dollar. So the value of food is going up. So every time we invest our fiat, our dollars into this system, the value is exponential in its return on the investment. Now, how much has food gone up where you live? The price of food?
This is, I mean, 500 times. I mean, it's 5 times. It's like it's 500% here in my where I live.
So, what's your currency called? I've been to Pakistan. I've been all over, but I can't remember the name of the currency.
This is Pak rupees, Pakistani rupees, PKR.
Pakistan, right? Pakistani rupees. So, if you'd invested, like a few thousand or whatever the currency is, rupees in creating some food production, like, okay, I'll give you an example. This is a mango tree right here, right? And when we bought this mango tree, it was only like 3 or 4 feet tall. And the cost of it was like $120. Now, this mango tree is probably 9 feet tall. And if I went to the nursery and I purchased this mango tree at this size, it would cost $500. So just by the size of the tree, the value has gone up by 400%. let alone the fact that it's already producing some mangoes. And in the years to come, it will produce $1,000 of mangoes per year. And nature does all the work. We just get to harvest it.
This is commercially viable. And how about the sustainability? How do we sustain when you're preparing the land for the first year for the crop? I mean, how about the first year of the schooling when you're
Yes.
preparing the land?
Yes, that's great. So what we had on the ground here, like in this area about 2 years ago, was just sand. There was no green, no life, no ground cover. And so what we started with is we start with mulch, right? Mulch is kind of all over here. This stuff right here is kind of disintegrated mulch, right? That's mulch. So we started by putting mulch all over the place. And then we seeded the ground with some ground cover, like this here is called perennial peanut, right? That ground cover there. And what we do in permaculture, which is a science of creating sustainable systems, is we follow the process that nature follows, but we can speed it up by adding these inputs like mulch and like compost tea, right? Sometimes we'll go into our cattle pasture and we'll grab cow pies, we'll put them in a wheelbarrow, and then we'll take them and we'll mix them with sand and soil, and then that'll create really good soil. And then we spread the good soil around where our fruit trees are.
Thank you so much. And again, now, how do you test the soil? I mean, when you go to decide, all lands are not for all foods or all what do you call fruits. So how do you make decisions? Where do you get the data from, or the data-driven decisions? How do you do that?
Well, here's the good news. It's simpler than most people realize. So we never tested this soil at all. We knew that it was lifeless because we dug a hole, which is now a pond, and we took this soil out of that hole. So it was, on average, this soil was 10 feet underground, right? It literally had no life in it. And then we added the right layers like the mulch and the plants, and the plants do all the work. The best way to test the soil is to look at the plant, right? You see those leaves? Those are healthy leaves, right? So the plants will tell us everything we need to know. If these plants were dry and wilted, we might know that it needs water. If they were curled up and yellow, we might know that maybe the roots have too much water, right? And so we observe and interact with the natural system. And by doing so, it'll tell us everything we need to know. And then we also start with what zone are we in? Here in Central Florida, we're in zone 9B. And every zone has thousands, except for the polar ice caps and the tundra, right? Every other zone has thousands of different edible plants that you can plant that will thrive in that zone. So, for instance, being in Central Florida, we've got a lot of bananas, right? Where I grew up in Minnesota, we can't have bananas. But here, we can't have apples. At least most kinds of apples don't grow here, but they thrive in Minnesota. So you have to find out what plants go well in your zone, in your area, and then put those in the ground.
Thank you so much. And when your kids grow up, they do have to get these entrepreneurial schemes for food and foresting only, or they can go they get into some other field also.
Well, I don't believe in control. We are creating self-reliant, inspiring, and compelling self-reliance, right? So I've let go of all ideas of control. I don't control, I don't use violence, and instead, I like to seed the mind with ideas and ask questions. And those questions lead to what the person, my daughters, for instance, if we're having kind of an issue with a particular thing, I'll be asking a lot of questions with a very beautiful tone, as much as I can muster. Once in a while, I get a little frustrated because I'm a dad, right? But for the most part, I do my best to stay very centered and say to my kiddos, what do you want out of this? What's your goal out of this? You know, what's the best way to achieve that goal? And when we ask questions from that perspective, number one thing is we are heard, right? When people start trying to control and yell and are coming from a frustrated or angry or prideful state, then what we will experience on the other side is a mirror of our energy and our emotions. So I'm very clear. If I'm ever frustrated, I go sit by myself. In fact, I'll sit here in the food forest. And then within minutes, my frustration will leave, and then I'll be clear enough to communicate again.
Jim, how long have you been in this food foresting, or you've been growing these fruity trees?
Yes. In this area, this was just sand a couple of years ago. And this area was about 4 years ago. And at my house, it's only been a year and it's already starting to come alive. Right. And before that, I lived in Costa Rica for 11 years. And before that, we lived on a lake in Minnesota. And I've been to Africa and Pakistan, all these natural places. And so really my whole life, I've been loving nature.
That's amazing. And you've been to Pakistan also. Do you find scope for fruit foresting here also?
Oh, it's an imperative. It's a must, right? And the places I was at in Pakistan, I was in Karachi, and I witnessed a lot of suffering, a lot of poverty, a lot of fighting, and there's, if you looked around, when I looked around, there was not very much life there. There was not many trees there. It was really just taken over by the systems that are destroying us. And here's that's the bad news. But the good news from where I was is that you could take that land and you could build it, right? You could use the compost from the local restaurants. You could use the waste differently. Everything can be transformed. All of our places of suffering and poverty can rapidly be transformed. We just need to show people how to do it. And then imagine if the governments around the world, I'm going to talk about the US government, right? One of the most destructive forces in the world is the military industrial complex. If the military industrial complex actually wanted to end war, they would spend 1% or 5% of their energy on creating abundance. And we would turn every army base, and this is going to happen. We are going to turn every army base into a food forest. And then we are going to use it as an educational system to teach the people around these communities how to grow food and become the seed of abundance. Our military is going to eventually put down their shovel or their guns and pick up shovels. They're going to put down their bullets and pick up seeds. And they're going to use that energy to create food for us in abundance in every community. And what that will accomplish is the intended goal of humanity is to stop the fighting and start the serving again. And this is the only act, the act of actual service, that will break through the division and the hearts and the minds of those who hate us, because we've been destroying people. Not we, as I'm talking about, a lot of people think that the US government and the different governments that are causing all the harm is relevant to the people in the ground in these countries. No, the vast majority of us do not want anything to do with the destruction and the war and the fighting. We want to see solutions. So that's what we're offering.
That's amazing. I mean, this is, though this is political aspect of what we are talking about, but this is really very important, because whatever the leaders are making decision, they are impacting the globe, and especially whatever U.S. government make whatever decision it is taken, this directly impact the globe. How far have you been able to convince people in this line of action?
Well, we are now serving people in 54 countries at least and 50 US states. We are helping people all over the world by inspiring them to take steps. And here's the thing is we don't have any control. We don't want any control over this. We simply want to plant the seed of inspiration so that people can go, oh my gosh, I can do this at home, right? Zafar, you could very easily start growing sweet potatoes and different things at your house. Even if you have an apartment or a condo, you can use your deck space or you could use land around. You can talk to your neighbors, right? Some of your neighbors might have a backyard. You can even put dirt in 5-gallon buckets and you could put little plant starts in these 5-gallon buckets and you could start growing food right there.
Amazing. I see the even my in my country, the government department who are working with irrigation or forestry, or they keep teaching people for the kitchen gardening. So would you like to throw some light on kitchen gardening too?
Yes, yeah, it's called garden what you've got, right? So, in fact, I'll tell you how logical and simple this is. We are working with homeless people that literally live in encampments around here. And we are giving them sweet potato starts, which they're planting around their homeless encampments, right? So there's nobody who can tell me we can't do it. If you have a tiny little home or apartment or condo with a little counter space, or if you've got a corner, you could literally put a half a dozen 5-gallon buckets of dirt in there, and you could put sweet potato starts in there. And within 6 months, you've got 50 to 100 pounds of food.
Thank you so much. Okay, Jim, can you? I need to change direction of. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, there was like
The
sunlight
sun.
directly. Yeah, that's cool. You got abundance of background. I mean, they're amazing. Okay, what make you abundant while you're gardening, and what's your future like? Where do you see yourself in 5 years of this abundance?
Well, the area that I'm sitting right now will be a jungle of food in 5 years. And my house will be a walk out the door and it'll just be ridiculous with food everywhere, which it already kind of is, but it'll be way more, like so much more. It won't be 10 times more. It'll probably be 100 times more food in 5 years. Like that's how nature or God's design works. It's exponential abundance. And the people of the world will be doing the same thing. These school models, I'll just give you an example of the school model. So anybody listening, you can in your town, in your community, in your neighborhood, right? You can find 6 or 10 or a dozen kids that want to learn how to be self-reliant. You create a space, is all you need is an indoor space so they can do some of their normal math and science writing. And then you need access to an outdoor space, right? It doesn't even have to be your own space. It could be the local park. It could be the local church grounds, right? Or mosque grounds. It could be anywhere. Just need a little bit of space outside. And then you can now here in Florida, the money for school follows the student. But no matter where you are, you could charge whatever makes sense in your community to charge the parents of the students, right? Maybe it's 20 bucks a month, maybe it's 50. But here's the thing, as the food starts to grow, the families of the kids are the ones who receive the food. So after 3 months, there's some food coming. After 6 months, there's a lot more. After a year, the students' school will provide much of the food that the families need. So calculate the value of that. So these schools will be popping up all over the world. And it just makes sense where every neighborhood has a school and a school teacher or two that help the kids in that neighborhood. And then the community comes around that process and everybody eats.
Thank
I lost you
so,
there. There
can you
you
hear
are.
me?
Yes,
Can
yes,
you hear me?
yes.
I can't really. I'm something wrong with my. Okay, my question is, okay. In last moments, what's your advice to the world? Your message to the
Yes. My message to everybody out there listening is to let go of the fear, let go of the scarcity and the concern, and step into your power. Connect again with your source, with your God, with your creator, and feel the presence of now. Feel the vibration, the energy, hear it, feel it, sense it, and ask questions and set intentions to do good, set intentions to serve, set intentions to create abundance for yourself, your family, and your friends. Right? This is so important and so logical and so loving. When you set that intention and then you listen and you become guided by this energy, this source around us, and then take steps and create new habits, right? That's one of the things that is most important, is to create new habits by following little steps every day. Plant one seed every day, right? And look around when you see beauty, and stare at that beauty and be part of that beauty for a little while, right? Because a lot of people around the world are very scared right now. We are going through a transition. This is the end of an era of scarcity and war and suffering. And with everybody's help, we can supplant this. We can get through this era of suffering and literally turn the world into a place like the Garden of Eden.
Thank you so much, Jim. Probably I just lost voice. I mean, in the last, I mean, whatever. Probably you're listening to me, but I mean, I couldn't hear the last message. Thank you so much, and see you soon. Be abundant and
Okay, buddy.
keep
Love
spreading abundance. Thank you so much for being abundance. Thank you so much, and bye bye.